Good morning, it's the 13th of October. I've been pressing on putting this transfer case back together. This transfer case is, if you can't remember, out of the 4-ton German TD5. It's got all the TD5 bits on here and the TD5 bits here and here, and well, the casing's strengthened and everything like this. Whereas we found out from previous videos, I don't know where the hell I am now with all these videos, but the ratio in this was a 1.410. It wasn't a 2.11. So I had in the container a 1.211 from Jeremy when we did an exchange, and his was the LT230Q box, but it was pouring oil out, so we just swapped him over for a 1.2. So what I'm going to do is, instead of putting a 1.4 TD5 together, I'm doing a 1.211 higher ratio, and a lot of people like that. We've got tuned up engines because it goes a bit faster and it goes a bit better, so it's worth taking that time. Now the only thing I skipped on this one was I didn't rebuild the diff because I really wanted to press on, so I already have some rebuilt diffs on the shelf in plastic bags, so I took that out, popped this in. But the bearings are new, and I've already put the input shaft in here, or the input gear, and I didn't measure it. I just put the old shim in and cleaned up the bearing, well, put new bearings in, and it feels lovely. It really does feel lovely. I wish you were here to feel it. But you'd get an idea because there's no slop on it. But if you try to spin it round, it won't spin around like that. It's just got a nice feel. Now the thing is, I've been doing this for donkey's years, so I know what they actually feel like. So really you could do everything by sort of touch instead of all this stringy messing about. So what we're going to do now today, I've put the diff in, that's all assembled, and the housing here has got nothing in it at all, except for a dummy bearing, which is this bit. Now we've already got the new bearing here, but the one that's in here we've had ground down at JP's shop, surprise surprise, so it is just a push fit into that housing. So that means instead of hammering the shim in and out, this, it means that we can pop it in and out kind of easy, and then once we're satisfied with that, we can then put the proper bearing in. Now the beauty about the dummy bearing is it doesn't affect the height. The height's dictated from here to here, you know, the inside of the taper, not here. So if it's a snug fit, it's just the same as a bearing, but we've taken off the, you know, the excess, so it's like a hammer fit into the casing. So it's easy to get in and out, in other words. Anyway, I'm rambling. So what we've got here is a dial gauge, and I've set it to 0, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a bar, oops, keeping everything clean, almost impossible here, under here, and we're going to see how much lift is on that now. So here we go. Oh, come over here, where are you? Bloody hell, that's a long way. There we go. So keep your eye on the gauge. 2.5. 2.5. This is thousandths of an inch, by the way. It isn't in metric. Set it to, go back, set it to 0. 2.5, nearly 3. It should have a preload. Ooh, look at that. It should have a preload of 0.02 of an inch. So I'm going to add maybe 0.04 of an inch shim to that and see what happens. Now, because I've done quite a few of these before, I have gained quite a few shims, some solid and some shimmy shims from Ashcroft's, you know, these really thin ones. The Ashcroft kit is kind of good because buying these shims individually just to try gets a bit expensive. And of course the one you buy isn't the one you want. You know, you'll put it in and you'll find it's not right. But like I say, I've actually put a solid shim in instead of a shim, you know, like a shim shrew. And let's have a look at what we've got. Well, here we go. Now I'm going to put some lift on this. Nothing. If you don't believe me, where is it? Here's my pry bar. There. There is no play on it there. And when I turn it, turns absolutely beautiful. Now you notice I've got a ball on here. Some people say, oh, why do you put a ball on? Well, it makes life easier, because if it's a sphere and you've set it to 0 even like 3/4 of the way down the ball, when you turn it round it's still going to be the same height. On a flat thing, I've tried them with flats on before, and there can be a little bit discrepancy on them, because this is just a little shaft. I've got the other one. No, I'll put it down somewhere. Oh, here. So that's just that shaft there, that stub shaft, but without the bearing on, so I can put that in the spline. This is sitting on top of the diff, so you can lift this up and down, and it's going to be good. So now I need to put this into here, rebuild all this casing, and then that bit's done. Hurrah! That feels really nice. Feels it's going to be a good box. Look at that. Really pleased with that. Well, sort of moderately pleased, I suppose. Right, where were we? I got a bit distracted. I put a couple of studs in here. I like to put studs in rather than bolts, because then you know that this top bolt, if it's too long, hits the gear inside, which is not a good thing. So, but these are both exhaust manifold studs out of a series, oh no, out of a Defender petrol, 2.5 petrol. They seem to be nice. This one's okay, but this one just have to cut it down a bit. So when you're lining everything up, these act as guides as well, and it's easy to put a nut on rather than get the bolts mixed up, because if you put the bolts in from this side, they're too long and they'll hit the gear. Next, I haven't put an oil seal in here yet, because I put an old oil seal in, because this is going to go on the test bench. So rather than, sometimes the oil seal gets a bit overheated, so I just put an old one in. Now I've just built up this, well I did that this morning, this is mid-afternoon now. I built up this casing, that's ready to go. But what I'm thinking about doing is something really different, because every time I do a transfer case I always think of something else to do, something a little bit different. And I think what we'll do is I'll show you how I set up these intermediate gear tensions. We've done this before, but I'll sort of move the camera a little bit. Somebody asked me before about this little jig I've got here for setting up the tension of the crush sleeve. Now this is a crush sleeve, it regularly comes with Land Rover. This is the one that we use. It's just a piece of tube, and we cut it down to size. And I was just down at JP's this morning, because this is a long one, and what we do is we try it in our little jig in his vise, and we ended up taking a couple of thousandths of an inch off just till we get that nice tension. Now remember, these are new bearings, they will settle down a bit, alright? But the problem with these crush sleeves is, or tubes or whatever you want to call them, is they don't crush evenly. They should have a little, like a raised part in the middle, so that crush is parallel, and they never do. They always crush like unevenly. That's perhaps a good exaggeration how they crush cockeyed, and then they come loose, and that's one of the why they vibrate a little bit. What we do is we get these tubes. Now let's do some measurements here, because I think this is inch sizes, these tubes. We've done it before, but we might as well keep doing it until we get it right. This is 1.25 inches outside diameter and 1 inch inside diameter, and approximate length is 2.3 inches. Now we cut them at 2.4 inches a little bit longer, and then we turn them down. What we do is, we have this same setup in JP. What we do is we put it in a vise and we rock this backwards and forwards, you know, like this, with a dial gauge on it to see how much we need to take off. Once we've established that, we do it in little increments and then just plane a little bit off and a little bit off until it's not free running. You know, you see what I mean? It's not spinning out for ages, but it's got a little bit of resistance. It works. And all it is a piece of bar. Let's measure this up. You know, it's a piece of scrap really we had. Well, approximately 1.5 inches by what would that be now? Wait a minute. Let's find it down here. 0.69. I don't know what that is, but it's irrelevant really. But there's a little round welded disc on there because this is undercut a little bit, so you need to put a washer on there. And then on the back I use one of these old keeping plates so that when the shaft comes through, I haven't got a shaft here, have I? Have I? Oh wait a minute, I think I've got one over there. Yeah, I thought I had one. So there's a pin, and you see it's got a flat on it to stop this from turning, and then this locks it to the body of the transfer case. So in effect that's what's happening here. We're just replicating the thickness of the transfer case. I'll do that in millimetres actually, because a lot of you work in millimetres, don't you, and then be able to understand it better. Let's see. So this is just a piece of 36.82 millimetres, whatever that is, by 17.8 millimetres. It must have been something I got from JP's shop. But overall length would be approximately, oh wait a minute, we want that length there, don't we? 25 millimetres. And you can make that yourself. Now, this is the theory. I should be able to now put this straight into the transfer case and then put the cover on, because that makes it easy to get the pin in, see? Because then I can get underneath here and tighten up the locking plate. Because we know that we've set the tension on here, we've set the tension on here, and by setting the tension on here we don't have to mess about with spring balances, loads and this, that and the other. We've done them all individually, so all together this should be right, and they will bed in nice. Now we don't have a problem with that, so let's see if it's going to work. This was a particularly nice pin. Like I say, JP just machined down this side here so it was perfectly round so we could use it again. Sometimes these where the bearings are, and if you've had a crappy thin tubing, that's the bearing for there, but between the two the crush sleeves moves and it allows these bearings to turn on the shaft instead of turn, you know, like the inner side of the bearing turns on the shaft and wears them out. This one's a good one. Another thing we have to do, which they don't tell you in the book, this has got a flat machined onto here. What I do is I just put a gentle chamfer on there, just round that off a little bit, so when you put it through the gearbox casing it's not going to bugger up the O-ring at the other side. Things you need to know, eh? Well, I'm not sure if you can see this, but we'll have a go. Now, we've got to make sure that the flat here goes to the top. The flat goes to the top because the bolt's at the top. Right. So, indispensable tool, put it in there, and slide the gear in. How easy was that? No strings, nothing needed. I'm going to just double check that I've got that exactly right. So I want the bolt to the top like that. So when I put that in, it's got to be like that. I'll put some oil around here. I'm just using gear oil, nothing special. I noticed this one was kind of tight. But it ain't going to come out. Oh yeah, all them turny things turn. So that's cool, isn't it? You like that? I do. So now, that isn't going to leak at all. And I'll show you the setup for the gears in a minute once we get it all done. First of all, I'm going to put the outer cover on, this front nose, and back shortly. So there we are, that's all the gears meshing together. No clunks, nothing, no binding. The seal has come out of here a little bit. I only put about 1 millimetre around it, but when it squishes down, you put the seal right on the tight edge in here, then it squishes out. We'll just clean it up with a knife when we're done. So that's done. Yeah, it'll all clean off. Might as well put the cover on while it's like this. Put the bung in, yeah, looks nice. So yeah, that's going to work out nice. I'll just make a note on some marker what I've done to it and the date and stuff like that, and then we're alright. So next step for this one, we'll put it on the bench tester and run it up, but on here for leaks, down there for working out. But now it's 5 o'clock, so I've had enough. See you tomorrow.